Hello and welcome to the penultimate episode of Six Nations Weekly 2025 as we look back on the defining weekend as the championship took a major detour as terms of who is going to claim the title. Joining me tonight to discuss a weekend that felt like it, an elongated state of sacre blue, if you're an Irish fan, our returning panel of Jack and Westy. Gentlemen, you're very welcome to the show. We might as well just jump straight into it. We're going to talk mainly about Ireland and France. I know it's Six Nations Weekly, but it's mainly Ireland and France today in Dublin, as Ireland said au revoir to their Grand Slam hopes. They were crushed 42-27 by France. The scoreline, unfortunately, didn't even reflect the dominance. It wasn't, it wasn't some garbage time scores for France. Westy, we like to get down to bare bones in this podcast, and I'll start with you. It's just plain and simple, just not good enough from Ireland.
Yeah, I like that expression, the garbage time scores. If the garbage time scores were ours, do you know, if that for like flatters us a bit towards the end. Yeah, just not good enough. I mean, there was a great moment where we scored the try, but yeah, I think you look back at the game, and particularly in the first 15 minutes, we were camped on their 22. We were camped inside their half. And I think they weathered that storm really well. I think they kind of had us sussed out. I think you really miss particularly James Lowe, but also maybe Matt Hansen in that backline. James Lowe for the kind of kicking nous and the big powerful running, and then kind of Matt Hansen roaming into your attack and kind of creating, well, not necessarily creating overlaps, but pulling lads into positions and keeping the defense second guess. And I think our attack in that 60 minutes is just really bland and really boring and really predictable. And I think that by holding us out at that point, France obviously had their tails up and kind of, it gave them confidence. I thought when it happened, when Dupont went off, I thought, okay, that's the sting taken out of their attack. Now we might be able to, get a bit more purchase because they'd had quite a lot of the ball at that point. And unfortunately, I think that's exactly what Ireland thought as well. I think we saw Dupont going off, and we were like, and first off, nobody likes to see somebody go off with injury like that. I think it was his ACL. I think I heard on the radio today, and that's awful. Like that, nobody wants to win a game that way. But I think even everybody's human, right? You see the best player in the world arguably go off the pitch, and you kind of think, oh, great. I think we're just really unlucky that like Maxime Luku came on, had a fantastic game. But the real win and losing of, I think, was the 7-1 split. Um, I don't give any credit to the Matt Williams bollocks that it should be banned. I think if you take the risk and it works out for you, fantastic. It could easily go against you. Um, but it's no surprise that they start to score their tries at, what is it, 47, 48, 50 minutes, they score three, just as they start to bring on, maybe, is it two at first and then the other five? I'm not sure exactly how the subs came on, but yeah, I think our attack looked pretty uncreative. And then when they brought on the seven forwards, I think they were really able to grind it out and make us look very pedestrian, I think.
Yeah, and we'll get on to Ireland's attack a little bit later on. But Jack, from your perspective, like I know there is an element that Ireland did not play well against Wales, and that should have spooked Ireland more than anything else because Wales have now lost 16 games in a row. But from your perspective, where did it all go wrong in this Dublin decider?
Uh, it's hard to like lay blame at any one, well, definitely not any one player or anything like that because, individually, guys are pretty much making good decisions at the right times and things like that. So, a lot of it was, a bit of a magnifying glass over Prendergast, but in terms of his individual sort of mistakes, they're fairly minor. Like I don't think anybody would begrudge him any of the kicks that he made. Most of his kicks were very good, and his decision making maybe around fielding, the backfield. We definitely ran out of touch a few times, a few sort of middle mistakes like that that doesn't normally happen. Again, like Westy was saying, if you're missing James Lowe, you're missing Mark Hansen, they sometimes are able to just shepherd those kind of mistakes into, kind of you can play out of that. But the way that the game just went, it just seemed like it was an impossible sort of task for Ireland because the French had us exactly where we wanted them. So it's actually really not as disheartening probably in that sense, because you kind of just throw your hat to, France and say, bravo, that was pretty exceptional what you did there. But yeah, certainly I think what we've grown to love about watching Ireland is that it's fun to watch, and we are fun to watch play when we play well. But that was certainly not the script this time around. So it was I think that's the kind of where we need to crack open that sort of egg to find out what's inside, because that was that how we couldn't get our game going is essentially that. I think that France you know repelled us on phases 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we kicked, and that was, I know that is primarily our game plan anyway if we're going forward, but even harder when you're going backwards. So I think France just played for that. They played for those first 5 phases, um, crushed the kind of go forward. You can't get go forward, you're not going to be able to do your multi-phase. Couldn't get Bundy into the game, couldn't get Dars into the game, just couldn't get game line. And which is strange when you look at the stats, because all the stats are fairly even, like meters made and things like that. Clean breaks, France definitely had the edge there, but that was due to them being able to get gain line. So again, it's like I know that the boys on Virgin were talking about that, weren't they? About just how you just need to win collisions, and it's a pretty simple sort of sport when you break it down like that. But unfortunately, there's 15 other lads that are waiting to stop you. So again, pretty simple. If they're better at stopping you from going forward in the way the other way around, you're going to be in trouble. So, and look, we might look back on this in a couple of years and think, you know what, yeah, we gave Prendergast a go at 10, and he's not making those little mistakes. And then if those little mistakes don't happen, does that lead to more reaping what you sow in a few years' time? Don't know, but for me, it's kind of hard to pinpoint any one in particular thing. I just think that overall, you gotta tip your hat to France and say they were better on the day, and that's what it comes down to. It comes down to, on the day you've got 80 minutes. You can't just ask for a replay and be like, oh, we could beat you again if we did it if we did it next week. Unfortunately, no amount of logic when you think, oh well, we would have won if we had this, and this. So, well, on the day we just weren't good enough, and that's it really.
And sometimes you do have to put sport in the simplest terms possible. Like, we could talk about BLBRE just being like very good try scorer. He's also just super fast, and sometimes speed just kills. But I guess we're kind of in the conversation about Ireland's attack now, because Ireland, for me, since Marseille last year, have kind of been slipping downward, and it happens. It's a natural cycle. Like, anyone, the big bugbear of mine, kind of this Six Nations cycle, is the kind of idea that, like, well, we're Ireland, like 12 men Ireland will beat Wales and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, winning will always stop. It doesn't matter who you are. And I do think Ireland are on the slide. They will pick back up eventually. Like, that's just natural. But for me, it's since Marseille. South Africa tour was okay. The New Zealand game was not good enough. The Australia game was not good enough, even though they won that one. And likewise last time out against Wales. And the attack being so stodgy is one thing. I think actually, and Westy, I'll let you start things off on this one. I think if this is a 2015 podcast, we say, oh God, Sean Edwards has done it again. But I don't think it was even a masterclass. I watched back the second half today. I think it was just pretty simple from them. Don't do anything stupid. Stay on your feet as long as you can. You stay on your feet, the Irish player, scrag them, pin them to the ground. There wasn't an awful lot of, we're going to target this guy or this guy. I don't even think they targeted Sam Prendergast. I think they basically just sat off him, said, you know what, you're not going to beat me on the outside. We're going to shut off your options, see what you do, like you do with someone like Finn Russell. And ultimately, when all that happens, and Ireland are losing so many collisions on the front line as well, it's just going to end up looking like it did, where just nothing really worked, apart from maybe kick to the corner, go from there.
Yeah, I think, like, I know it's a big hot topic, and it's a passionate debate about the whole Crowley Prendergast and people saying, oh, Prendergast has been found out now, but like, lads, you can't say one player cost that result. It's just, as you said before, there were signs of this in the New Zealand game where we weren't good enough. There were signs in the Australia game where we weren't good enough. look, it's, Andy Farrell has stepped away. Simon Easterby's a temporary coach. Is it Goodman? I can't remember his first name, Andrew Goodman, in the attack. So like things are changing, right? And we have to evolve and develop as a team. And sometimes when you try to evolve and develop as a team, you have to take a step or two backwards. But you would have kind of hoped that in the New Zealand game and then again in the England game, where these things didn't look fantastic, that steps were been taken in the interim to correct them. And I think, like as I said in the first point, with the lads been away, and I'll extend that then to the likes of maybe like Bundy got a kick in the face in 20 minutes in and then kind of wasn't really seen again and was taken off later on. I think we've gotten through the last few games maybe on individuals creating something and getting us on the front foot. And then obviously our support lines click in and our shape kicks in and it's fantastic. But when we weren't able to get that front foot ball against France, as you say, when France were happy to let us fucking, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm allowed curse.
You can fire away as much as you want.
We're happy to let us charge at them. And as you say, like, hold us down, hold us in, isolate us. I think one of the things that's changed, and like I'm no great analyst of the game, but we used to go phase on phase on phase on phase, right? And there's an old statistic that I think is after the fourth or fifth phase, your chances of scoring actually start going down the longer you hold the ball. But we said we're Ireland, we're going to hold the ball, we're going to see what happens. Whereas in the Six Nations and in the last kind of 12 months, maybe we've moved into more of a like holding it for 5 or 6 phases and then kicking it. And you said it really well there when like they were always going to have us for pace. Like Biel Barre was always going to be us at pace. Peno, Ramos, even their centers were going to be us for pace if you gave them room to get going. So I think by doing that standard kind of 4 or 5 phases and then kicking, although the kicks aren't necessarily bad, they're more than happy to take the ball far back and have a go because they have that kind of, I say, that pace, that creativity. I mean, Biel Barre has 17 tries and 17 appearances. Damien Peño just beat the try scoring record, although because Ramos gave him the ball. But yeah, I just think, I think the attack seems to have been simplified and it doesn't seem to be yielding the results that we need. I think, as I said before, we're kind of relying on it. We're relying on one, work rate, which is fine. I think that's, if you can't beat them physically, if you can't win those collisions, work rate will win you the game. If one guy breaks a tackle, but 2 lads locking over the ball because his men now have to work an extra 3 or 4 steps to get over him and protect and defend the jackal. If you're working hard enough, you can counteract the fact that they're overpowering you. And although I don't think there's anything lacking in the effort, I think I just don't think our attack was dynamic enough to make them question themselves at all, really. They were happy to truck up and again, as I said, when you bring 7 lads fresh off the bench in a game that's already quite tight. I mean, what was the stat? They had something like 140 tackles in the first half. And you think in a normal game, you think, oh, well, geez, they're going to be wrecked now in the second half. That's a lot of work to go through. But when you can replace your entire pack, or 7 out of 8, it doesn't matter how many tackles you make them make in the first half. It's that Razzie Rasmus thing of tracking effort. Once your involvement start to dip, you come off, and on come this fresh set of players. And someone said to me, I was having a coffee with lads on Saturday, and he was like, France just have this like warehouse of like mildly attractive second rows who are huge and all have like 20 or 30 caps because the top 14 just provides them. So yeah, I think we were outdone by a strong Sean Edwards defense, obviously, a very skillful team, and we just didn't bring enough to the table.
Yeah, and that's it. And like, to France's credit, and we'll give France their dues a little bit later on. Like, Michael Guyard in the second row was excellent. Oscar Jegu off the bench was superb. He went into centre and he tackled everything that moved. Paul Boudin and Francois Crowe. I mean, if they were eligible, I think we'd be talking about them as the 2 Lions starting flankers. Like, if we're being entirely honest, they were brilliant as well. And like, yes, France could go 7-1, and yeah, I know Paul came off and Barassi came off and whatever, but Ireland were also 6-2. When France essentially changed 6 substitutes, and Ireland did as well, what you ended up seeing was Keane Healy got 12 minutes, Rob Herring got 12 minutes. I know Conor Murray and Jack Crowley came on a little bit later as well, but they were in the back line. Like, did Ryan Baird, I'm not calling out lads individually, did Ryan Baird have much of an impact? Did Tom Clarkson much of an impact? Did James Ryan? I think Jack Conan and James Ryan were probably the best of the subs. But then if France are bringing on Shegu and he's making what felt like 20 tackles, and they're bringing on whoever else, Cyril Bay, Julien Marchand, they're popping up with big carries, big moments because they're on at 50. Ireland are the ones reacting, and this is something we talked about after the England game. teams who make reactionary substitutes, it's not a good sign. You can almost track it. It's almost the worst thing you can get into. And I think that's what we've seen from Ireland. They tried to react. I think they reacted by going 6-2. I don't think it worked. I think I would have started James Ryan, to be honest. I know Joe McCarthy's a good player, and I'm not blaming him. Look, the yellow card, not his best moment. It happens. Do you know what I mean? Like it happens. There's silly moments in every game. It's Ireland's first yellow card of the championship. It happens. But at the same time, I just felt like Ireland got a lot of things wrong. And I think I do think the selection at 10 was ultimately one of them. I would have went with Crowley, and people say, oh, it's biased, oh, it's this, that, the other. Yeah, very funny. But I just ultimately think, the game plan that we were going to ask, if we were going to actually threaten this French team and get an attack going, was not what Sam brought, but what Jack brought. And ultimately, then Bundy goes down, and then you're really on the back foot because he's not at 100%. James Lowe's already off. And Jamie Osborne, I actually think, did all right. Nothing fantastic, nothing awful, but he's no James Lowe. James Lowe's been one of Ireland's best players this championship. You talk about moments. Dan Sheehan came up with those moments against England. Bundy against Wales. No one had them at the weekend, and it's absolutely a factor. And Jack, I might get your take on the bench because as Westy has said, as I've said, yes, there was the 7-1, those 7 forwards and how good they were, and the Irish bench maybe not as good. It was what swung the game though. Even if it wasn't necessarily 7 forwards playing in 7 forward positions, it was what swung the game in France's favour massively.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a few other points that I think you guys have made that I want to touch upon as well. I'll try and make it all make sense so it's not just word salad. But yeah, like the bench, you just look at the timeline and it's 3-4 scores right after halftime, right after we actually score, which is when you think the momentum might swing back, and they do exactly what you expect them to do. Here comes the bomb squad. But they score the try. I forget the seven's name. You can say it better than me probably. But the set the
Boudon, sorry.
Boudron, yeah. So he scores that kind of dubious kind of, well, is Peter O'Mahony taken out? He's not really. He's kind of buying it a little bit. But
Thank you. I'm just going to interrupt you a second. Thank you. I'm not the only one who sees it. I'm like, if you ask Peter Mahoney, he's probably like, yeah, I'm trying to buy a penalty. Like we all are. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't understand. And like,
and
I was going to bring it
Flammo,
up later. We can cover it here now. Angus
yeah.
Gardner was fine. Like that incident was fine.
Absolutely spot on. The whole day. It's lovely to listen to him because he's just so affirming, isn't he? He's just like every second it's like, well done, well done, well done. You just think, oh, you must feel great if you're like you penalizing people, but well done. But no, the bench obviously they score the try, they get back in front, and then they unload the bench, and you think, Christ, there you go. Like that's just gonna completely take the wind out of your sails, isn't it? That's exactly what happened. They just played the perfect tactic. They did what they want. They did what the coach wanted. The one thing that Westy said earlier about having like big moment players, but big moment players with a bit of flair, with a bit of skill, with something that you can do something when you know what our game plan isn't working here, lads, because we kick and we have a phase play and we have like 2 or 3 big ball carriers, but what do we do when that all goes to shit? So I think, like Westy said, is this, well, me personally, I would have, a load of changes for, in hindsight, because all of these players, and actually, guys like Hansen and Lowe, they're excellent in the system. They're very good system players, so they can play the system, and then, that allows us to play the way we want to play. But like I say, when things are not going well, then you need someone like, I'm part of the Jacob Stockdale Society, so I have to mention his name anytime I want a podcast. But like for him, for example, you can just give him the ball and something will happen. Maybe like Shane Bolton is going to be the same. You just give him a ball because he's just a nasty man. He wants to hurt someone. He's just going to like run over folks. So like maybe that's who you need, because when guys are in the system and they're like, oh, what do we do when the system goes to shit? It's like you need to pull something out of your arse down. You need to just do something. Like I'd be like, this is schoolboy rugby. It'd be give the ball to Bundy because he can go forward. Apparently, he carried 4 times in the game. Like that's just bonkers for your centre. And Robbie Henshaw wasn't much better with only 8. And Jack Conan comes off the bench and has 10 carries in like 30 minutes. How is that possible? You know,
Yeah.
how are you allowing guys to just empty themselves like Doris, who went on and on and on and on and on all day, but ultimately, you can't just have one guy. And yeah, the whole tactic was try and get the ball wide, try and stretch the French. But what the French were very happy to do is just drift out, and the backs made their tackles. That was all they needed to do. Really, they could give up yardage because they know that 4 phases later, Ireland will have to go direct, and when they go direct, we're going to smash them. And that's exactly what they did. In hindsight, again, easy for us to say this, but what Ireland probably should have done more is being direct themselves and actually say, okay, we know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to absolutely try and melt us for 45, 50 minutes and then blow in the last 20. What we should have done is probably gone straight, been direct with them. And the tactic should have been, yes, we can do, the short passing and we can kind of nip around the fringes, but make these lads make a ton of tackles, more than, try and double the number that they made, because all it was, like 5 meter scrambles on the French sort of try line. But what we did is go wide and then panic offload. So the offloads are just flying around, and it's like, no, 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 no. You've done what you needed to do. Continue to be patient and just be direct, because you'll get the dividends. So like, there's a few things where I just think, yeah, the tactic was get the ball wide. The tactic was we need to play away from the French forwards to make them run. Make them decide like they're unfit. It's like they're pro athletes that they're gonna be fine. You have to make them look unfit. You have to actually put them through the ringer and actually, put pressure on them and actually say to them, like, we can do this and we can actually outlast you. And perhaps if they had done that, perhaps if we held on to the ball and just went direct, 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 that maybe they would have tired. Maybe it would have been a closer game. And in that last 60 minutes, you bring on the likes of Murray, Crowley, and then Conan and Baird can come in, and then you go wide, and then you try and turn and burn that way. But it just tactical. It didn't work. The kicking game didn't work really too well, but there were some good moments in there. And then yeah, the bench did what they could. Lots of effort, no doubt about it. But Luku comes on, and he's got an armchair ride, isn't he, for the last sort of 60 minutes or so. Um, so yeah, I mean, exactly the way France would have had it mapped out. And then when you've got the likes of Ramos, Peno, and Bielbieri, it's pretty easy. Just whip the ball out wide once you've sucked in all the Irish defenders, and then voila, it is it's game over.
That's the thing. Like, you've hit the nail on the head. The game was played on France's terms. I remember at one stage, and I watched this game in the pub, so I didn't really hear much of the commentary. But at one stage, I did hear them say Ireland are controlling the pace of this game, and no, they're not. Ireland have more possession. France only made, what was it, like 6 tackles in the first 18, or sorry, Ireland made like 6 tackles the first 18 minutes. But it
Mhm.
was on France's terms. Everything about this game, from the gain line to the kicking game, and especially in the red zone, was all on France's terms. And Westy, I might bring you in there because it's a massive part of Ireland's attack that we didn't mention already. Is they actually were all right. They picked up a few penalties and kicked into the corner, got up into the red zone, into the 22. But when they got there, wasn't magnificent. Now we can go on and on and on about the middle third of the field and how, like, for instance, Bundyaki, if he's only carrying the ball four times, that's a system error. Do you know, like, it is. That is a failing system if that's happening. But at the same time, if you're getting held up over the line consistently and you're going backwards multiple times when Ireland were in the 22, they got driven back out of it. That's just like, it's inexcusable, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and it kind of comes as everything comes down to kind of a lack of creativity in attack. I mean, I think we were very, very easy readable. People talk about the less and less influence of Sean Edwards, but at the end of the day, a Sean Edwards defense is a press defense that gets up in your face and makes you make decisions. And I think we, as Jack said, we kind of were panic offloading and like panic and trying to find options, as opposed to kind of um don't want to say trust in the system, because I also think, as you say, I agree with you again, that it was a systematic errors in terms of where we were targeting to take the ball. But I just don't think we did ourselves any favors. Again, it's a very tough day as well. You got Jamie Osborne, who I don't think has played a lot of wing before in his life, and then Calvin Nash comes out, is told he's playing 5 minutes before kickoff, which is a difficult position for people to be in. And then all of a sudden they're getting the ball with three French players charging up at them, and it is maybe one of the areas where we're not supporting well enough. People aren't getting back in support. I think one of the only times we looked properly dangerous in attack, and I can't say a bad word about him, Hugo Keenan, I thought when he got the ball in space, particularly from kickoffs, charged up, we actually looked like we might go forward from it. But it's what happened after that didn't seem to be cohesive. I mean, like, you can talk about playing a shorter, wide game, but other than kind of running at them, I didn't really know what we were trying to do in attack. And yeah, like, if that's, you can, as I say, you can be captain of 22 for 20 minutes, but if they're pushing you back out of it all the time, then you have a problem. It's tough when they're a bigger pack. Like, these things are true, but you would think that that's something that we would have anticipated in training during a week, and we would have thought about, even I go back to the game, was it 2 years ago, where Finley pops the ball back inside, and we have that great line for the try. Is it Murray gets the try, I think? I can't remember.
Keenan's try, but yeah,
Keenan's
against
try, yeah.
France.
Yeah, like, there just didn't really seem to be much of that creativity, or none of that creativity with confidence. I think we lost confidence in the first 15 minutes when they're camped in their 22, and yeah, and that fed into their game then later on.
And everyone's got a plan to get punched in the face. And I do wonder what Ireland's backup plan is. Do you know? And I mean that with respect to them.
Well,
Do
I
you
think
know?
that's one of the problems of where the 6-2 split, as you say, it was reactionary to their kind of knowing they were going to go 7-2. As Jack said, when your backline isn't firing, you don't have a lot of options to bring on. And that's not a criticism of Murray or Crowley. I mean, they're fantastic players, but, and I know, like, Ringrose was banned, so not Ringrose, but maybe even McCluskey, or maybe, I don't know, somebody on a third back on the wing you can bring on and say, we're changing our shape, we're doing this instead. Or Crowley in for Prendergast earlier on. Now, I think Bundy's removal was forced, so I know it's not that simple, but I think that as much as the 7-2 worked, or the 7-1 worked for France, the 6-2 bit us in the hole, I think, a little bit.
Massively. Massively. I wasn't in favour of it. I'm in favour of 6-2 with certain builds. But my issue is when you bring on Baird and Ryan for McCarthy and O'Mahony, and obviously Conan came in for Doris, but or for Van der Fleer, but there was a couple of changes, Doris at HIA and all that. I think that pack becomes so samey. It's not a pack build that scares many teams. I don't think it scares England. I think Wales proved they weren't scared of that Irish pack build the last day. And again, credit to Wales, it definitely doesn't scare France. Like, Manny Miafu was running over Caelan Doris, who is Ireland's best back rower. And, like, look, Manny Miafu can run over most people in the world. I understand that, but there is this kind of knock-on effect, and it was also almost symbiotic. But Westy, I will get to closing word on France in a minute, but I'll just let you take this one for about Ireland. The broader question is where to next for Ireland. But in terms of the rejuvenation of style, the kind of changes, the natural evolution, they're lucky in some ways. They've almost just hit this dip at the right time, because obviously it's a Lions year and they can, bring, honestly, bring 50 lads in the summer tour. I actually don't care how many you bring. Like, just make sure you blood lads. But it's also so important. I don't know, maybe you disagree with me on this, that we don't do an emerging Ireland summer tour. That we get lads and scale them up so they're ready. Because what is the point? And I'm just going to pick names at random here. But what's the point in bringing, say, Fintan Gunn, and I'll pick a Munster lad, Ben O'Connor, and I don't know, Jack Murphy, for example, if they're not going to be in the squad for another 2 years. Bring lads so they're ready to step up. It feels like a massive next 6 months for Ireland, or whatever length of time until the calendar closes.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and a lot of it will hinge on the Lions. By all accounts, we will probably have a starting 15 away with the Lions. Like, just for argument's sake, we will probably have a player in every position at least. One or two arguable cases, but let's just say that for argument's sake. I think the big problem with a tour like this, and we saw it maybe 4 years ago, well, maybe it wasn't 4 years ago, it was 8 years ago, because it was COVID 4 years ago when we went to Japan. when you bring a squad to this, and it becomes, as you say, essentially an emerging Ireland tour, you put combinations together that are never going to play together. And that's a problem. Like, if you put 15 lads in an Ireland jersey and send them out to play, great. They might beat Portugal. They probably will beat Romania. They'll fucking struggle against Georgia. But what do we really learn apart from getting lads a little bit of experience against? Like, I love Portugal. I think Georgia are really hard done by. These are teams I want. I'm excited that we're playing against, but it's not really at the, well, apart from Georgia, arguably, it's not really at the level of the Six Nations or even the autumn internationals that we'll have. I think we have the Springboks and New Zealand again. So I think it's important to work on the combinations. Whoever you have, you are pairing them with players who are younger and who you're, when I say younger, I don't mean 19. I mean maybe who only have a handful of caps. You really have to maybe work on. I am 100% biased, but I would not be shocked if Finlay Bealham is in the lines. So you have to give Thomas Clarkson meaningful game time if that's the way you're going to go, and you have to give him meaningful game time with either a Herring or a Kelleher, or well, Dan Sheehan's definitely going to be in lines, but whoever is still there and whoever has the experience in the Ireland jersey, because that's how you're going to develop them. If you put in essentially an under 23s Ireland team into these games, great. It'll be a great experience. It'll be really fun to watch, but we're not going to take a lot of benefit from it really going forward. So, yeah, I think it has to be managed well. I mean, I think it's about balance in the team, isn't it? It's about, okay, Hugo Keenan won't be there, so maybe Jamie Osborne gets a lot of reps at full back. James Lowe might not be there, so and forgive me if I'm getting 13s and 14s and 12s and 11s wrong. But so you're going to have Calvin Nash build up more game time and more confidence when he's outside. And McCluskey again, who has a lot of experience for Ireland. Like, it's not all about just banging down the youth. You have to get the experience in there. You have to get as much out of the players that you have available as possible. And I mean the current Ireland players, you get as much out of them as possible while doing as much good for kind of the fringe players, let's say, as possible. And I think the mistake we've made in the past, and one of the reasons you don't get massive. Now, I think the Emerging Ireland tours have been decent, but one of the reasons you don't see a lot from them is it's combinations who do not play together. And I will say that in Andy Farrell's credit in the last 4 or 5 years, he has done very well at bringing in players to play alongside an experienced partner. So I really hope to see that ramped up in the summer tours.
It's important. Like, ultimately, well, obviously I'm the youngest of the three of us, but I would have been brought up hearing that you can't use the Six Nations to scale players up to, it's the Six Nations is too big of a deal. Now we're kind of in that bracket, and it's like, oh, and now you look at the summer and it's like, oh, sure, we go emerge Ireland because the entire picture has changed. But like for me, and I come back to this, Munster finished top of the URC and won it 1 year, well, 2 separate years. Ulster were within the width of a post to get into a final. It didn't change selection. The Lions tour has to. Like, you can't, as good as Andrew Porter is, we can't split him in two. We can't be in two places at once. So it's going to have to. But for me, use those minutes. Like, take Lucette prop. I want to see Jeremy Luckman and Tom O'Toole, if that's where you want to go, along with Jack Boyle. That's who I want to see there. I want to see Gus McCarthy, maybe not even Rob Herring. Go maybe Tom Stewart, for example, maybe Gibber Barron, who was heavily involved with the Ireland Day. Max Deegan comes back in there. He's an experienced head to go alongside maybe a McNabney, maybe Gavin Coombs gets the recall, or whatever way you want to go. But so you're in a state of mind that when you hit November, you have guys who are playing top level URC minutes, who've also been in the last Ireland squad, and are going to be close by. So that if you want to make those changes, you can. Whereas last November, like Cormac Izuchuku, who's probably been one of the best URC players in Ireland for the last 18 months, he's won cap. Some of that is injuries, I understand that. But that's where you're kind of getting stuck in this flesh-eating cycle where URC form doesn't matter because you need to get into Ireland camp. You can't get into Ireland camp because we're going to use it for an emerging Ireland and so on and so forth. So hopefully that changes. Jack, I'm going to close things with you on France. This is the most positive the chat is going to be for the whole show because we get to talk about how good France were. Because France were brilliant. And we can give them so much praise because they punished Ireland. They were deserving victors. I think the big question now is, will they see off Scotland? You'd imagine they will. But in terms of just this performance that they put up, arguably one of the best of the Galthy era. Like, they were so disciplined, they were so sharp, they were electric on transition, and they did it with Antoine Dupont going off injured. And look, I like Maxime Lucu, but I did not recognize your game. I did not think you were this good, not at test level. Like, this was probably the best French performance of the Galthies era.
Yeah. Just the previous point, I think we should petition to World Rugby that we have, a Six Nations B that we have, or a Summer Tour B that is just for the Ireland players, just so that we can get them gelled in. Because I think what you're talking about there is absolutely bang on.
Hashtag should we buy London Irish? Question mark.
Well,
Isn't Eddie Irvine buying them and wants them to be in the URC or something
I think
crazy
so,
like that?
yeah.
Like, or Eddie Jordan, sorry.
the fifth
Anyways,
column.
back to you, Jack.
Ealing, Ospreys, Swansea, Dublin, Trail Finders, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think that kind of it's probably, if we were to probably be a fly on the wall in the French media, I imagine they were looking at this like, all right, Galtier, this is your big chance. This is your last shot type thing. Because he's not covered himself in glory. They've only got he's only got the one Six Nations, isn't he? They got that, the Grand Slam, was it just after COVID? And World Cup in France, missed out by a whisker. You know, Cheslin Colby charged down for a conversion. But it's you got it, yeah. You got to just say, Galtier has just absolutely pulled it out of the bag, and it's his moment as well, and he should be pretty proud of himself, because I think that is like the biggest sort of the biggest kind of flex of all, is to say like, yeah, we came here 2 years ago and Ireland taught us a bit of a lesson with, high ball and play, moving the ball around, starter plays, kickouts from goal line dropouts, stuff that we haven't seen. And then, some of the stuff that we've talked about in terms of, you know, the progression for Ireland. We're not seeing that. So we're not seeing more of the same, or at least, a variation of it. So yeah, Galte's come in and he's gone, Rossi, I think you're onto something there. I'm gonna do it myself. And, I was talking about earlier, rugby's pretty simple when you go into collisions. So they do that, and then it's great to see, actually, because that's what you want to when you see, when I was watching France play when I was younger, it was all about, being big and physical, but then they just threw the ball around and had tons of fun, and they just looked like they were, in the backyard, just, throwing it around, having the whale of a time. That's what they did, that's what they did yesterday as well. So, Galtier, he's gone back maybe to the French way and having a bit of fun with it, and not just kicking long and just chasing and just finding that you can squeeze people with kick pressure and stuff. He's like, actually, no, we have absolute mammoths in this team, so we're gonna bloody use him. And he can take all the credit, because Dupont didn't just pull out a wonder pass or a kick or a try to win it at the death and be like, well, Dupont has saved a Galtier again. What a wonderful gentleman he is. And it's like, no, it's all Galtier, and it's all Edwards, and it's all the other coaches that we don't know the names of, because we're not in the French media, so we don't know. But yeah, like, you gotta hand it to him. Like, that was just the chef's kiss of the tournament. They should absolutely, and if Leslie was here, I might have thought about different words, but they're probably going to absolutely hose Scotland next week, because I just don't see it happening. However, it's France, and they could play like they played against England. And if they played like that last night, yesterday afternoon, 2:15, what a ridiculous kickoff time. We would be talking about something completely different. That's why it's sport. That's why we'll watch anyway, in hope that something else will happen, and that they'll get a red card, and something will happen, and it'll be mental, and then Scotland will win it at the death, and it's like, wow, that'd be fun. But yeah, you got to give it to France. I think that's the title there, really.
For me, like I said it, they were so disciplined, they were so intact in unison in defense, that was striking. But I do think their attack looks better when Ntamak is there. I think Anton Dubon is probably the best rugby player that I'll ever get to see live, and I've seen him a few times. But at the same time, I don't believe in this. This also accounts for Ireland. This is a message to both teams. I don't think you can play off nine in Test rugby as easily as you can in at club level. Do you know, like it's so easy to play off nine with Leinster or with Toulouse, but at international level, it's not as easy. When Lukaku came in, Intermac did get them going a little bit easier. His ability to sit down Irish defenders, because he's a very good runner. He's a better runner than probably any other 10 in the Six Nations. Can I say? I think that's fair to say. Maybe prime Gareth Anscombe would probably be up there, but he's a long way past that now. And I just think, do you know what? France, if they do go on and do it, they would be deserving winners. If France do fumble it and provide an absolute bottle job, this conversation is going to look very silly because we seem so defeated in order to consider winning the championship. But ultimately, it's if that's the case, it's England's to lose because they've got Wales. And if they bonus point them, it's impossible for Ireland, which goes back to Ireland's attack being on 14 points through 4 games, being only on, I think it's plus 13 points difference is it's not great, compared to where they were at last year, where it looked like they were going to run over everyone after 3 games, and then obviously that slip up against England. We'll move on. We're going to cover the other 2 games and the under-20s now towards the end of the show. We're starting Murrayfield, where Scotland made it 3 wins in a row over Wales despite another gallant fight back. Westy, I'll start with yourself. It was kind of a almost perfect first half from Scotland, and then it was an almost atrocious second half from Scotland. So very Scotland.
Yeah, it's almost like watching, like, I hate the expression, but it's like watching 2 different games, really. The first half makes you think, Jesus, maybe the Scotland team might do us a favour next week. And then second half you think, nah, they won't.
Maybe England will, or maybe Wales will do us a favour next week.
Maybe Wales, yeah. I mean, they've looked better. Yeah, I think Scotland haven't looked. Scotland are always kind of a bit of both, right? They're always kind of they're almost a new France. It's about what Scotland turns up almost, and Finn Russell in particular has been having I would say, far from his best Six Nations. I still think he's a fantastically skillful player. I wouldn't be counting him out at all, but I think he's had a difficult Six Nations thus far. I think, yeah, I think Blair Kinghorn at the weekend or yesterday was fantastic. Even when Scotland looked quite bad, I think Finros was a bit better, but you're still seeing that same kind of frailty maybe into the second half a little bit. And I mean, I think they're probably missing Tuipulotu a lot more than they want to admit. I think Hugh Jones is playing fantastic rugby, and I thought Jordan was fantastic yesterday as well. But I think they're missing that kind of, like, I don't think Doohan has been as effective as a ball carrier. Again, look, so a lot of things I'm saying are true in the first half and not true, or sorry, not true in the first half, but true in the second half. But I think that the consistency of the performance hasn't been there for them. I wonder kind of where they push on from here, because this is kind of and again, I don't like the term, but a golden generation of Scotland players, and I've been a long time under Gregor Townsend, but you start to see that kind of fall apart in the second half. And again, look, you have to give credit to Wales as well. It's a fantastic fight back. I think they're very unlucky with the Tuipulotu try. I do think it is jumping over the tackle, which, is outlawed. You take a knee to the face from a second row and you'll know exactly why that's outlawed. But it just shows how exciting and creative Wales' attack can be, and how well kind of Matt Sheriff is doing with them. But yeah, I think maybe Scotland, they have a habit of taking their foot off the gas. I mean, even against us, right? You went to that second half and they were in that game. And looking back at the France game, maybe it wasn't just us kicking into second gear. Maybe it was kind of Scotland looking down and taking their eyes off the prize a little bit. So, yeah, another worryingly inconsistent Six Nations for Scotland. If they can get the win against France, it definitely kind of goes a long way to saving their Six Nations. But this is a Scotland team that we've been told can play like that first half for an entire Six Nations tournament. Yet we can't really see them do it for a full 80 minutes. So I'm disappointed. I mean, I like the fact that Scotland are competitive. I know as a Munster fan, you probably don't like Glasgow, but I'm glad to see other teams winning the URC. I'm glad to see it be a competitive league. And I'm glad to see that translate into the international scene as well, because as you say, and a lot of people said it during the week, you don't want to watch Leinster versus Toulouse in these games. You want to see more players involved, and obviously the flair of Bordeaux definitely did a lot for France. But overall, it's a period of underperformance from Scotland overall. Okay, you see, as I say, you see the green shoots like the first half yesterday, but I mean, they do very well to hold on in the end, and again make it look like a better scoreline than maybe Wales' performance deserved.
Absolutely. And look, I think Scotland deserve some credit because ultimately their ceiling is kind of just behind, Ireland and France, who've had this generational run almost of being so good for the last couple of years. But at the same time, like maybe Gregor Townsend should look at himself as well. Like he's spending as much time talking about fucking 7-1 benches as he is about, maybe they took their eye off the ball. Like there's a bit of that as well. And Jack, on Wales, like Matt Sherratt deserves a lot of credit. I know people would say new coach bounce, whatever. Fuck that. Like it has been better than that. That's why the first half has been the anomaly of the Matt Sherratt mini era. And two players in particular who stand out to me and have done all tournament, Jack Morgan and Talupe Faletau. If both of them are on the Lions tour, it's deserving. If one, fine. If neither, I think Wales deserve to just leave the British and Irish Lions because these two they are so so good. And if Faletau had had that try allowed, we'd be talking about one of the great Six Nations scores.
Oh, oh yeah. I mean, I didn't watch all of it, but I watched the first half and I thought, Wales, you're really doing it over well here because I made a prediction. I said I think Wales are going to get very close to Scotland this weekend. I think it's going to be a very tight game, and of course, it's not really blowout in the first half. And I'm thinking, oh, that prediction's not looking too good. And then, yeah, whatever happened in that second half, just Matt Sherratt, I think again, like the guy, the whole new coach bounce, totally get that, but there's a new coach bounce in like club rugby, and when you're playing, you might end up playing the Dragons, or you play a B, you play a side that's just not on good form. Whenever you're playing against the likes of any of the Six Nations teams, especially when your first game is Ireland and you've got, was it 4 training sessions? You then got a couple of weeks to get ready for Scotland up in Murrayfield, and you get within a score. Okay, maybe not a score. We won by 9 points, didn't we, against Wales? But they were within a score yesterday of Scotland. You just think there's a new coach points, but there's also something else that's going very, very well for Wales there. Yeah, Morgan, Faletau, they're just absolute pros, aren't they? Just every time they take the pitch, you never get less than, 6 or 7, out of 10 with those guys. Um, they should have just given the try because if it's that cool and there's no injuries, like you should give that try 100% of the time. But I like the way Wales are looking. I mean, it's again it's not like a broken record, but it's not really that complicated, really, is it? This game, get the right players, stick them in the right positions, have them run over lads, and usually you're going to get pretty close. If you're Blair Murray, I'm going to jump over you instead. And it's like, fine, let him do that. Rugby's too sterilized. We need to get a few more boots in the face and just be like, well, that's rugby. Let's just move on. But no, of course, kids, if you're listening, don't jump over tacklers. It's really dangerous. Um, but yeah, I like the way Wales are going, and I don't just say that because I want them to beat England so that we have a chance at the championship. But no, I'd be lying if I am lying. I do want that absolutely. But yeah, man, I think they've got some great players. I think they got to work with what they've got, and if the WRU aren't gonna, properly fund the regions and it's all going to go to crap, then you might as well just have, use what you got. Don't try and shoehorn things, square peg, round hole. Make it work for you. Get the guys in there that are doing the best around, the country or in England, wherever they are. Get the best guys in, get them singing off the same hymn sheet. Pretty simple game plan, but again, it's not that complicated. Get big fellas, run over other fellas, and then you'll score some nice tries, and that's what they did. So yeah, Wales need to be back because it's a little bit depressing with them going on such a long losing streak. So yeah, I hope that given next year, give Sherratt the job, and next year we'll see where they're at.
Yeah, and if they could turn over England, I think it would be one of the biggest results of the Six Nations the last couple of years. But
And
that
similarly, a winning streak is called a winning streak for a reason, right? Like a winning streak ends, just like a losing streak. It's going to end at some point. If it ends next weekend, oh, That's gonna be fun.
It would. Super Saturday is called Super Saturday for a reason as well. We will move to Twickenham, where England, with the help of a third quarter blitz, got over the line against Italy 47-24. Kind of like some other games, it was closer in the first half, second half they pull away. Jack, big win for England, and to their credit, they are, like, I know we're just slagging them 2 seconds ago, but they are getting into a bit of a run of form.
Fair play. Yep, gotta hand it to them. Did what they needed to do. Scary enough first half. Like our first half. Like that was I watched. It's actually the only game that I watched start to finish, and Italy were superb in that first half. I mean, really, really good. They were good against France, but then again, France just blew them out. So yeah, England came out second half and just dominated. The first 15 minutes. It's like, nope, I'm not gonna let Italy in. Scored a couple of tries, got in front. You're cruising a little bit like little bit like our game. When France get that 9 point lead, 12, 15, it becomes a real really hard to just claw back. I think it was that for Italy today. They were in the game, but as soon as they go, a score behind, two scores behind, you know, we had to chase the game against France. They punish us. Similarly, England, very, very, very astute, very, yeah, very like routine. It was like, we're gonna stick to what we know, stick to what we do well. But then thrown in some lovely sprinkles of offloading and handling and passing, and Finn Smith, Marcus Smith, and the one and only Jamie George, with some lovely little offloads as well to get was it slide home in the corner for one of the tries. Really, really nice play. So England are again, back on the up. And I said it after our game in round one. I said England will just continue to get better, and I'm lucky that we got them first up. Lo and behold, they are looking like, they're looking like England again. And they are, they're also playing some good rugby when they get the chance. But obviously, they're playing to a game plan, dominance up front, and then, whip it in the corner, get the wingers from the ball. Simple game. So, yeah. Italy were good though. I mean, I'll let you guys touch on Italy, but I thought England were just very, very professional, really, in that second half. They just, closed up shop, and that was it.
And credit to it. Look, you don't want to say when you lose by 20, 30 points or whatever, credit to Italy. You don't want to say that the whole time. I do think they have shown glimpses of where they are going. I think their selection is so much more consistent. Granted, I'm not sure if I agreed with the Tommaso Allen on the bench call. I know he was carrying a knock. Um, their attack has improved so much. I think the big issue maybe last year, the year before, was they didn't know how to get the best out of everyone. Now that line of Brex, Minicello, Capuzzo look unstoppable at times. They're playing really, really nice rugby. You could have question marks about Garbisi, which would be fair, and maybe even Ioane, but they're improving. They know where they're going. I think that's the big thing now under Gonzalo Quesada. They know what direction they're going in. They know what they want, and they're building from there. And that is where you need them to be. Before we go, because we are a small bit tight for time, Westy, we're going to talk about Ireland under 20s, a third loss in 4 games. It's been tough. There is the context that they've had an awful lot of injuries. Alan Spicer, Alex Usinoff, Luke Murphy, I'm forgetting someone, Niall Smith, I think as well, and others. They've had a lot of injuries, but despite all that, not the worst result. And one man in particular did stand out again, Michael Foy, the local Cork man down in Cork. Cork lads play better in Cork. That's just the rule of thumb anyway. But look, it's not been a marquee year, but if they can just kind of build something by the time they get to the World Cup, and if they can be fit at the World Cup, then you can judge them off that, I feel.
According to Cork people, everything is better when you're in Cork, so I'm not surprised he's having a good run. Yeah, no, look, very effective around the park. We were talking about before we came on. Turnovers like Lyle Steele's, just a huge work rate and an engine. That I think is no surprise to Munster fans. I hadn't really heard much of him before the on-26 Nations. I think it's we had 2 very good crops the last 2 years, and it's easy to kind of expect that to continue. But under 20s is such a special animal in that, like, literally the entire team changes every year. You can't necessarily expect the same consistency that you would expect from an Ireland team or a Munster or Leinster or a Connacht or Ulster, whoever you're following, because players age out and stuff, and perhaps we were a little bit spoiled the last few years in just how consistent we were. But it is good to see that even though maybe results are disappointing, and our attack isn't quite as dominant and exciting as it was in other crops of players, that the players like Foy are still able to show their class and show their kind of what they're capable of, because that is at the end of the day what the under-20s is for. It's for these guys to get meaningful development games, to get used to the professional environment, and push on. And I was actually listening to an interview with Noel McNamara during the week, where he was talking about when he went to, because he worked in South Africa, he worked in France, and he said that you really need, I think he said it was 10, you need 10 under-20s before you have one senior player, just because you need every at that level, and then only one person out of that group is going to be able to make the step up. And I think it's great to see the potential of that within a team that maybe isn't firing as well. Because again, I'm really biased with all this, but the likes of Hugh Gavin, as a Hugh Cooney as well, and Leinster, Matty Devine, like we've had a Ben Murphy, Jack Murphy, we've had these great period of these under-20s that's really pushing on, because the side was so dominant. And as I say, I think it's great to see that you are still able to identify these talents, and you're still seeing these players getting so much out of the under-20s tournament, even though the results themselves are overall disappointing.
And it is disappointing. It's disappointing for the players. You do hope, of course, that you don't judge players based on just their 20s year, because like Caelan Doris came from one of the worst 20s years of the last 15 years. For example, like that can happen.
I just finished Sexton's book. I don't think he played much under-20s at all. I think he played far more AIL than he played with the Irish under-20s in the schools.
Yeah, and that's prevalent with the likes of, say, Owen Smith, for example. I know he started the weekend, but he would have been kind of on the outside looking in alongside, behind Conor Fahey, but he's been playing a lot of AIL with Cork on. Give these guys time. I think we've had such a good crop the last few years, as you said, with that team in 2023. I don't think there was a weakness in it. Like from 1 to 23, 1 to 25 even, like, which you never get in Ireland. But look, there's still an opportunity there for them when the year comes to an end with the World Cup. I think if they have a pack that has Usinoff, Smith, Walker, Spicer, Corrigan, Murphy, Foy, McCarthy, it's a very different looking pack straight away compared to what's already there. And then you might see fortunes go a little bit differently. But gentlemen, we're just under the hour. It's actually pretty good time, and I won't lie. But we will leave it at that. My thanks to Westy and to Jack for joining me this evening to talk about, a disappointing Irish loss for sure. But look, it is what it is. We still have one more week to go, so don't check out. We'll have Super Saturday chat coming next week, Ireland against Italy, as well as what will probably be the title decider in Paris, but hopefully not. Well, I suppose it technically will regardless, but hopefully the title won't be in Paris. If you do want to hear that, if you do want to hear some Women's Six Nations chat, we have a very special interview coming on the Red Army podcast this week. We've got Lions chat on the URC podcast. I'm a busy man, but anyways, if you do like what you see here, please do subscribe. All the links are down below. You can catch the lads on Chatting Provincial Action in the coming weeks as well on their respective shows. But for now, and until next time, until next Sunday, take it easy.